Cops humiliate black man at a checkpoint. 5 minutes later, the cops get instant karma. Have you ever been judged for how you look or how you're dressed? Imagine being stopped and questioned, not for what you've done, but for who you appear to be. What would you feel if someone in authority looked at you with nothing but suspicion? Our story begins on a quiet afternoon. The sun was high, the road clear, and Michael, a black man dressed casually in a simple t-shirt and jeans, was driving down the highway in his old sedan. He was coming back from a relaxing visit to his mother's house, with nothing more on his mind than enjoying his music and the open road. But as Michael approached a police checkpoint, he couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. Why? Because he'd heard the stories, seen the news, and knew that sometimes stop and search had less to do with law and more with looks. What would you do if you were pulled over without reason? How would you feel if those who should protect you only caused you fear? As he rolled down his window, the officer's eyes scanned him coldly, up and down. Not a word had been spoken yet. But the message was loud and clear. You don't belong here. The officer's partner, another white cop, approached the other side of the car, both men radiating a sense of dominance that didn't seem to fit the situation. Why so much aggression for a simple checkpoint? License and registration, the first officer demanded, barely glancing at Michael's papers before tossing them back. Why do people in power sometimes act like they're above the law? Isn't everyone supposed to be treated with respect? With a smirk, the second officer said, "Step out of the vehicle." Michael complied, his heart racing. He knew he had done nothing wrong, but the way they were looking at him, it was clear they didn't see an innocent man. They saw a threat. They began patting him down roughly, treating him like a criminal, right there in the open. A few cars slowed as they passed, drivers casting curious or concerned glances. Michael felt the weight of their eyes, and the humiliation sank deeper. The officer made comments under his breath, snide remarks about how someone like Michael could afford a car, even one as modest as his. "This your car?" he sneered. "Or did you borrow it for the day?" Can you imagine the anger and hurt that comes from being judged without reason? What would you do in his place? Speak up or stay silent? Michael clenched his fists, trying to stay calm. He wanted to say something, anything, to make them see that he was just a man driving home. But he knew better. He'd seen how quickly things could escalate if he dared to question their authority. But just as he was about to be let go, things took a turn for the worse. What happens when those with power cross the line? Who protects us when protectors become predators? The first cop spotted Michael's phone sitting in the car and reached in, grabbing it. "What are you hiding in here?" he asked, scrolling through the phone without permission. Michael protested, trying to explain that they had no right to search his personal items. But the cop smirked, daring him to do something about it. When Michael took a step forward, the officer shoved him back against the car, rougher than necessary. "Stay right there, unless you want more trouble." The officer sneered. "Do you believe in karma? Have you ever seen it unfold right in front of you, catching people off guard?" Just then, another car pulled up to the checkpoint, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows. Out stepped a tall man in a sharp suit, clearly someone important. The two officers stiffened, exchanging uneasy glances. The man approached with authority, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. The officer's demeanor changed instantly, becoming nervous and unsure. They mumbled about standard procedure. But the man wasn't buying it. He looked at Michael, then back at the officers. "Are you aware of who this man is? Ever see people's expressions change when they realize they've made a huge mistake? Imagine the shock on their faces when they learned the truth." The suited man turned out to be none other than the head of the police oversight committee for the state, and he happened to know Michael personally. Michael was a respected community leader and a well-known advocate for racial justice. The two officers had no idea, but they were about to find out. "You two need to understand the consequences of racial profiling," the man continued, his voice stern. "I've been sent here to ensure fair treatment at these checkpoints, and what I see here is far from fair." The officers stammered, scrambling to explain themselves. "We didn't mean any harm," one of them muttered, visibly shaken. Have you ever witnessed a moment where someone's actions came back to bite them immediately? How satisfying would it be to see justice served in real time? The suited man took out his phone, dialing a number while the officers looked on in horror. Moments later, another police car pulled up, and out stepped a senior officer who immediately approached the two cops. "Hand over your badges and weapons," he said bluntly. But, the officers stammered, protesting. The senior officer shook his head. "There's no excuse for this kind of behavior. You're being placed on immediate suspension pending an investigation." He nodded to the man in the suit, who watched silently, arms crossed. How would you feel seeing justice in action right before your eyes? What would you say to those who had wronged you? Michael finally spoke up, his voice calm but filled with an authority that left the officers silent. "This isn't about me. It's about everyone who's ever been treated like this, just because of how they look." The suited man nodded, placing a reassuring hand on Michael's shoulder. "We'll ensure justice is served," he promised. "Your courage to stay calm has made all the difference." As Michael got back into his car, he drove away with a sense of relief and justice. The officers, left stunned and speechless, were left to ponder the lesson of that day. A day that started with prejudice but ended with karma. Swift and unforgettable. Isn't it time we treated each other with the respect everyone deserves? What would the world look like if justice was always this swift? Remember, it's our actions that define us, and those in power must always be held accountable.
If you've watched this far, comment which country you're watching from, and leave a 100 in the comment section, because you are type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos.